Hello, everyone, and welcome to the pod. I'm Dave Glaser, Director of Communications here at St. Stephen's Episcopal School, and I'm here with our head of school, Mr. Peter Kraft. Over the past 5 days or so, Peter has shared with the school community the tuition and fees schedule for 25-26, and even hosted an online head of school roundtable. Hopefully, you had a chance to digest that information or even to participate in the roundtable discussion. Obviously, the goal has been to make it as clear and transparent as possible where resources at St. Stephen's are allocated and why your ongoing philanthropic support is really critical for the school. So today, we thought it might be a good opportunity to review some of the critical areas of the school's finances, highlighting both the upcoming tuition and fee schedule and Peter's long-term vision for the school's fiscal health. So let's just dive right in. Peter, at some point in the recent gatherings we had with parents and the school's administrative team, you said that the finances of independent schools are basic but not easy. Uh, that's interesting. Can you explain what you mean by that?
Yeah, sure did. Yeah, I mean, in one sense, the revenue and the expense lines in our schools is pretty basic. 85% of our revenue comes from tuition and fees. And going out the door, 80% of the expenses are for our people. The rest of those expenses are a combination of program and, kind of a variety of other things. But so basically what it means is you have to focus on, your tuition and fee line and at the same time be thoughtful and careful with the stewardship of the expense line for people and for their salaries and benefits. So that's basic, but it's not easy. And, what we're always trying to do is make sure that we can keep our school as accessible to as many people as we can while taking care of our teachers and taking care of the folks that make this place so special. The fact that inflation, at least, in the recent history, threw a wrench into all of that has made it even trickier. But I'm really pleased to have the opportunity to share as much as we can, kind of where does all the inflow go and where's the outflow go? And we're really trying to be, as I said, and you said it, as clear as we can. So when we have a fee, we're going to call it what it is, and we're going to make sure that it goes exactly where we say it is.
Mhm. So let's talk a little bit more about philanthropy in particular.
Sure.
You mentioned that giving only accounts for about 5% of the school's annual revenue. Um, so we'll assume that's why you put an emphasis on getting folks involved in things like the annual fund, the Green and Gold Gala, Rock the Mac, and other opportunities at the school.
Yeah, exactly right. Dave, one of the things I used to do when I was a classroom teacher is I used to say to my students, don't raise your hand when I ask you this question. Please don't raise your hand. Okay? Everybody got me? Don't raise your hand. And the kids would look at me oddly, and then I'd ask this question. So, how many of you are on tuition assistance here? And I would say the answer is everybody. And the reason the answer is for everybody is that tuition and fees don't cover everything. And so, therefore, we are all standing on the shoulders of others who are making additional sacrifices, whether that's our endowment that spins off about 3% a year on $8.5 million, whether that's our annual fund, which takes care of our people, whether that's our gala and all the folks that give to that helps us make our home and our campus, beautiful and keep it up, whether that's Rock the Mac and things like that for our teams. The reality is without that work, we can't make it work. And so it's also the reason why people say, oh, Peter, gosh, I would never want to ask folks, for philanthropic contributions and for money. I would hate that. You must hate it. And I say, I don't hate it. Because number one, I know that it's other folks' money. It's not mine. So they're going to do that if they feel it's important and they have the ability. But more importantly, I know exactly where it goes. And it goes to the people who make this place special. And so that's actually an easy thing for me to talk about. And it's one I have such passion for because I see its impact on kids every day.
Well, one of the things you mentioned is our endowment. So let's touch a little bit more on the endowment. Where does the money for the endowment go, and why have you made it really a critical goal to double the school's endowment by, say, 2030?
Yeah, thanks. And just to take a step back, again, when we talk about the annual fund and we say it goes to people, right? That's what goes to the holiday fund that made such a huge difference to so many people. And that's what goes to professional development, which allows them to sharpen their saw and just do an incredible job in the classroom. Uh, the gala, again, as I said, does things to make this campus beautiful. So the endowment is often the one that people say, so yeah, I don't see that. What is that doing? And the reality is that's what the foundation of our future is. Schools with large endowments have two enormous advantages. One is that they almost all use a percentage of that for tuition assistance. So they allow those who may not be able to pay as much um, to still have the opportunity for their children. And again, we're all on financial assistance here. I can't make that argument strongly enough. The other thing, though, is it's budget relief. So it's money that spins off from the endowment. We pull about 3% of 850,000, 8.5 million. So 3% of $8.5 million is roughly $250,000. Imagine if it were 500 or 750 or a million. That just exponentially expands the types of things that you can do as a school. Um, and it also hopefully allows us to be even more fiscally responsible with our funds. So that's why we've made a pretty bold goal to double our endowment by 2030. And what that means is we've got to spend even more time talking to people about what we now call the legacy fund and how they can leave a legacy. Now, when I was 30, 40, 45, I was in a different place in my life. But now that I'm a little older and a little grayer, I'm starting to think about that. And I can tell you that St. Stephen's is in my estate plan because I believe so much in it. So, with a growing philanthropy and a growing endowment, it gives us opportunities to just expand for everybody that's here and for people that will be here one day. Because ultimately, an endowment is for not just the future, but for perpetuity. So, 100 years from now, St. Stephen's is still here, still thriving, still making a difference in the Bradenton community.
Well, thank you for that. So let's just switch gears quickly and talk a little bit about some of the changes that have been made this year in the tuition and fee schedule, namely the creation of a comprehensive tuition model and changes to and some elimination of some fees. And can you maybe talk about the thought process around these changes?
Yeah, and this comes from experience day. My daughter's in college. We paid 14 years of independent school tuition for our child. And so I always say it because I know it. I mean it. We know what these sacrifices for our families look like. I've lived it. Um, One of the most frustrating things for me with my daughter, who we're delighted with the school she's in, and I'm not happy to pay the tuition, but I know where it goes, and therefore I write that check willingly. But it is hard when all of a sudden I think I'm done paying and then I get another fee or another fee. I just got one the other day in the mail, and I still don't actually know what it's for. Um, I paid it because
I know you shared that with us. It was a parking fee,
it was a parking.
and your daughter has no car.
That's right. It was a parking fee, but my daughter doesn't have a car. As far as I could tell, they weren't building a parking garage either. But so this comprehensive tuition, what we're trying to do is say, look, these are these are the fees that you will pay for the instruction and curriculum for your child. I.e., this is what it pays to educate your child. Um, and there are some things that are discretionary that aren't included in that. Not every child has a lunch plan. Not every child does after school or has a tutor. But I want to move away from these fees that you don't really understand what they are. Or they just seem ancillary. $12 here and $23 there, and all of a sudden, not only is it real money, but it's frustrating. You just feel like, wait, I thought I had finished paying you. So the concept of comprehensive fee is just that we're trying to really wrap all of that in. The other thing that is important to me is it requires us to be fiscally responsible. You know, when you don't just say, oh, well, we didn't budget for that, but we can just charge people. Well, they got to pay it. And so we have to do an even better job of making our budgets work. The fees is similar to that. My wife says, "Well, Peter, you don't have that many virtues, but one of them is you say what you think, and you say it as clearly as you can." And when I look at whether it's St. Stephen's or other schools, there are these fees that I don't quite understand where they're going. You know, and without ruffling feathers, one that this school used to have was a matriculation fee. What I tell people is, I know what matriculation means, but what you're paying to come here, like what is that about? So we've eliminated a lot of these fees, and we're going to have one major fee for all of our families, and then an additional fee for families that are brand new. And the fee for all of our families is a fee for security and for infrastructure, and that will be $500 per student annually, at least for the foreseeable future. And that money's going to go to security and security upgrades and making sure that our infrastructure is where we need it. Unfortunately, as I've said in a couple different times, we had $150,000 of uninsured storm-related costs. And that's real money, and it's money that, we hadn't budgeted for. Uh, but more importantly, and again, unfortunately, our families know that we've had times this year where our HVAC didn't work. We had to move kids around campus. We're not going to pay for that all at once, but we got to start chipping away at that. So this behooves us to be as clear and as responsible as possible to say, this is where those funds are going. And by the way, you should expect to see noticeable improvements. My hope is that in the future, we don't have to move kids around the campus. But that takes resources, and resources beyond just tuition resources for the reasons I shared before. The other fee that we're implementing is for all new students in grades K and above. So any parent whose children are already at the school and enrolled or re-enrolling for next year, this will not apply to them. But it's a $1,000 technology fee. And it's a fee, again, exactly what it sounds like, for this hardware and software that their child will use throughout their career at St. Stephen's. One of the things that we have to do is replace things: laptops, iPads, switches, routers. And this provides us a more predictable budget line. And again, I wish that, we were in ability to have an enormous endowment that spun off money and we could use some of that. We don't have that yet. But we also want to be transparent. In the past, the only people that paid that were folks that were coming into the upper school. But the reality is that some of our heaviest technology users are in the lower school, in the middle school, and the intermediate school. So last time I checked, none of us like to pay fees or taxes or any of those things, but I think it behooves us to be as clear and precise as we have. We've gotten rid of some. There used to be a matriculation fee, which I talked about. That's no longer. There was also what was called a bookkeeping fee for people who paid tuition in installments. And again, I couldn't get a good answer on what that bookkeeping fee was really for. So I said, if we can't answer that question, we're gonna get rid of that.
So when we heard a parent ask you about the increase in tuition and fees since a year ago, you mentioned that it's not really apples to apples. That may have sounded to some like you were kind of ducking the question, but after hearing your explanation, and we've all heard it, it definitely made sense. Can you kind of share that with us here?
Yeah, I can. And I promise it's not just a shell game and I didn't answer the question. Let me give you a couple examples of why it's not an apples to apples. This was new to me. And unfortunately, if you have a 12th grader and you're listening to this, it will apply this year, but it won't apply in the future. Um, we charge our families a graduation fee to help pay for a variety of things related to graduation. And it's not insignificant. It's about $600. So moving forward, we're not going to do that. That's going to be part of the comprehensive fee. I joke that it's like when I lived in New Jersey, and New Jersey was the only state in the union where you paid to get out of the state rather than getting in. Uh, and I just don't think that feels good. Another big change we've made in the middle school is we are making the class trips, or what some people call the IQ trips in the middle school, part of tuition. And as a result, that's no longer a separate fee. And I'll tell you a quick story. When my child was in an independent school, um, and I got that bill, we were sitting with some friends of ours when it came in on my phone, and my wife looked over at me and I was sweating. And she said, "Look, are you sick?" And I said, "Yeah, kind of." Because a bill for $2,500 that I didn't necessarily have budgeted just came through. So those are the reasons why they're really not apples to apples at all, that we're really trying to, in 2022, 23, not this year because I don't have all the numbers yet. On average, our families paid a total of $713 extra, and that's not including the fees that were published. Those were the hidden fees. So that's just one of the challenges that we're working on, and I'm hoping that makes this again a lot more transparent for our families.
Sure, sure. So a basic question, I guess, that's pertinent to many here, as tuition increases, does that mean that tuition assistance also increases?
Yes, I mean, in a word, that's exactly what it means. Our goal is that if one's receiving financial assistance or tuition assistance and their situation has not changed, hopefully people's situations improve. But if they don't, that as tuition goes up, the comparable increases is offset by a commensurate increase in tuition assistance. Um, and again, I just come back to this. There's two really important things I can't stress enough. One is that everybody is on some type of assistance because it does not cover the entire amount. But secondly, tuition and fees are the key for us to keep pace with with competitive markets, but also with inflation for our faculty and for our employees. Um, that's why I said before, it's basic but not easy because they're the lifeblood of our school, and not in a patronizing way, but in a deeply felt way. We want to take care of, and that's how we'll do it. What I'm proud of is that our all-in tuition and fees remain below our peer schools. And without being tacky about it, our peer schools are schools like ODA or Fort Myers Canterbury or Berkeley Prep or Tampa Prep. We're considerably below them, and I'm proud of that. And I don't plan to change that because I think that it's what we should do.
Mhm. Well, so if you pull out your crystal ball, what do you envision the school's financial picture looking like in, say, 2030? And how do we work to ensure that the school remains within reach for families who value what St. Stephen's provides and they want to send their children here?
Yeah, thanks. Well, I'll give you a little peek behind the curtain. One of the things that expires in 2030 is we have long-term debt financing on the upper school buildings, which long predated my or most anybody coming here except for longtime employees. So in 2030, a significant annual debt payment is erased. That's going to give us even more opportunities as a school to do some exciting things. As I said before, we hope by 2030 we'll have an endowment that through both additional contributions and through market gains will be twice its size. We hope that our annual fund, which by the way is doing very, very well, but we still have things that we want to work on, and we'll come back to that at another day. But I'm hoping that that's even 3x where we were last year at this time. I'm hoping that we have a physical plant that remains beautiful, doesn't become, that remains beautiful, and that has additional elements to it. How exciting would it be to have a new gymnasium, new athletic center, a new lunch lounge? These are things that I think we not only could use, but would really, really, really contribute to the life of this school. And then I hope that with all the work that we're doing, our tuition increases remain sustainable. Over the last 25 years, on average, independent schools and colleges had increased tuition when it's smooth or graph between 6 and 7%. Long term, that's not sustainable. And so as we make some adjustments, anybody listening to this has my promise that we will do everything we can to have sustainable tuition increases moving forward. Because without that, these opportunities are available to fewer and fewer and fewer people.
Well, so you've given folks a bit to digest here. Any final thoughts you want to share, Peter?
Yeah, I would just say, as always, thank you. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your trust in our teachers, in the school. Um, Thank you for the sacrifices again that you make to send your children here. Um, I always want to come back to that. I believe in my heart, and I say it a lot, that education is the greatest gift you can give a child because it can never be taken away. Um, but it requires sacrifice, and that sacrifice will never be lost on me and our team. And I just want folks to know we appreciate it. And I'm always happy to talk more. So if folks have questions, just reach out and be happy to answer them the best I can.
And we want to thank you all for taking a few minutes today to listen in with us. And we hope you'll join us on the very next From the Heads Desk podcast. Until then, we want to say, go Falcons.